All right, welcome everyone to our Trauma Healing Institute webinar. We are going to be launching with you an exciting new opportunity. We're going to be sharing our newest program called Anchored in Hope, and we are excited for you guys to join us. My name is Megan Perez. I'm the U.S. Program Manager for the Trauma Healing Institute. And we are excited to see you. We're excited to meet you. So feel free in the chat. Why don't you guys throw in the chat where you guys are coming in from, where you guys are signing in from? We'd love to hear from you all. We'd also love to hear if you guys are ministry leaders, if you are church leaders, or if you're a pastor, a youth pastor. We'd love to know your perspective on where you're coming in from the ministry context. So, as we join and get started, there are just a couple instructions. One, if you have questions throughout this presentation, feel free to throw those questions in the chat. We have someone that's ready to answer any questions that you may have. There's also a section of our time today that we're going to be talking. We're going to be engaging live Q&A discussion. So if you have a question that you want us to engage at the end, feel free at the bottom of the toolbar. There's a little Q&A icon. Hit that, enter in your questions, and it'll go in a queue that we can discuss at the end. All right. So that's kind of just the basic instructions for today. Our time is going to be first, we're going to talk a little bit about this program, the structure, the training, and the program model. And then we're going to get into the live Q&A section at the end. So that's going to be what our time looks like for today. And as you know, we're here. This is going to be part one. It's going to be a brief overview of this program and some of the ins and outs of this program. But part two is coming in on November 5th. And we want to invite you all back to join us. At that time, we're going to have a 2-hour convening session, which we're going to go a lot more in depth into the orientation of this program, trauma healing, and kind of provide what you would share with, like, let's say your church, that type of presentation. And then for the majority of that time together, we're going to actually dive into one of the full lessons. So we'll have trained facilitators to lead you through an actual lesson from Anchored in Hope. So it's going to be a really fun experience. We want to invite you back to get a closer look at this new program. So with that said, we're also here not only to hear about this program, but I believe that we are here today because we have a shared desire to see healing in our communities, in our churches, and in our families. I believe that we all know that trauma is not just an issue, but trauma is a global crisis. And trauma knows no boundaries. It affects people of all ages, all genders, and all ethnicities. And because trauma can impact every part of a person's life, another thing that is really important, especially as believers or as Christians, unresolved trauma can actually block us from experiencing or receiving God's deep and abiding love. And so that's why we want to come here today to talk about this program because of how critical it is as a tool for our churches. So let's get started. I'm going to um, share my screen real quick with you all. And while I get the opportunity to share with you, why don't we just get started? So the Trauma Healing Institute, our our mission at the American Bible Society, which is the Trauma Healing Institute, is a part of the American Bible Society. We exist to help the church address the effects of trauma, grief, and loss with proven resources that integrate biblical and mental health best practices. So the heart of our resources are really the small group program. So the heart of our ministry, the heart of what we are providing churches is our small group program. And one second while I bring this up for you all. There we go. The distinctives of our small group program really have like 5 characteristics that make the methodology really uniquely effective. One, it combines proven mental health practices with scripture. The second is it is designed for anyone to use. So you do not need to be a mental health professional to be able to go through the training. It happens in small groups led by trained leaders. So a really critical and pretty common structure within churches is our small group structure. And this program can be implemented in those small group structures. It's participatory and it's adaptable. It can be used under a mango tree. It can be used in a church basement. It can be used in a seminary class. All of our small group programs have this trauma healing arc experience. So we start with our program builds, each lesson builds on one another. So it starts with understanding suffering, being heard, what it means, what is the grief journey, lamenting, and then it culminates at bringing our pain to the cross. But it doesn't end there. It goes through forgiveness, what it is and what it isn't, and how to build resilience. The impact over the past 20 years of our resources have been pretty significant with 153 countries that have used our trauma healing resources. We've also trained 45,000 facilitators globally and seen over 500,000 people have gone through our small group programs. Now, we know that this is just scratching the surface. And we also have been learning from what is happening on the ground. So it's a critical area for us to be able to see innovations and also barriers and challenges. And one of the key challenges that we see over and over again with churches is the complexity and the barriers of implementing our program. 2 years ago, I helped do a survey with over 1,000 churches in the United States. And what we found and what we heard from churches and pastors was pretty sobering. 70% of pastors and church leaders had identified that they were experiencing trauma. These pastors estimated that 40% of their congregations were experiencing trauma. And this was higher in predominantly Black, multi-ethnic, and urban churches, upwards around 48% on average. So these pastors were looking out into their congregation where half of their congregation was going through trauma. What else was really, really critical in this survey was 4 out of 5 pastors indicated that they were interested in developing a trauma healing ministry, but only 17%, so that's only 1 out of every 5, or less than 1 out of every 5, currently had something in their church that they could offer that was in the area of trauma healing or trauma ministry. And so this is really important to us because we recognize that churches wanted these resources. They recognize the need. They recognize there's a high desire for these resources, but they just didn't have the ability to offer them into their churches. And so this is why why we worked really hard at trying to take our core resources, our most effective resources, and build a platform and a way to implement these resources that was streamlined and effective for churches. And so I'm going to invite Brianna Leiendecker, my co-worker, to really go into the ins and outs of how this program was developed, the structure, the training, and the program model for you. And then we will go into Q&A after she shares.
Thanks, Megan. I am so glad to be with you all today. My name is Brianna Leiendecker, and I oversee program development for the Trauma Healing Institute. And before I get into, sharing about the launch of this program and giving you some more information, I just wanted to share a little bit about where the idea of this program came from. This program originally started being dreamed up back in 2022. And we took the first 6 months of 2022 to do some initial research, to do some field site visits, especially globally, because where this program came from actually originated as a radio program that was broadcasted throughout Africa. And they took that radio program, and it wasn't really a small group program. It was just people listening and not really being able to engage. But they took the radio program, the scripts, the content, and they turned it into an audio program instead, where on certain devices, the program was able to be played. So we traveled to Nigeria and to Uganda to learn about how this program was being used and in what ways can we revise or improve it to help this become a global ministry that is used here in the United States and as well as around the world. And I am so excited that today, October 2025, we are officially launching Anchored in Hope, Finding Healing Together as Trauma Healing Institute's newest program. So let me share a little bit with you about what this program is. Anchored in Hope, in very many words, is an adult app-based audio healing group program. And thank God we named it Anchored in Hope so we don't have to continuously describe it as an adult app-based audio healing group program. But what this is, Anchored in Hope is a derivative of our classic adult program, Healing the Wounds of Trauma, How the Church Can Help. Healing the Wounds of Trauma has been around for 20 plus years. It first originated in Africa 20 plus years ago, and then it came to the United States about 15 years ago. And when I say derivative, what I really mean is Anchored in Hope is another expression of healing the wounds of trauma. It provides the same content, it provides the same overall healing journey that any of the adult classic material does as well. So some of you I've seen in the chat, you are a little familiar with our book-based program. So when I'm talking about the book-based program, I'm referring to Healing the Wounds of Trauma, and Anchored in Hope is our app-based program. You may be asking yourself, so if the content is the same between both programs, why did you create it? How is it different? And briefly, some of the biggest differences about Anchored in Hope from Healing the Wounds of Trauma is, first, this program is delivered via an app. The book-based programs are all manual-based, manual for the facilitator, and then there's manuals for the participants. That is not required in Anchored in Hope. The Anchored in Hope program also has a video-based training series, which is a first for Trauma Healing Institute. All of our other trainings against our adult program, our children's program, our teens programs are all either in-person or online trainings. And they cannot be done asynchronously, where Anchored in Hope, you can download the app, take the training yourself, and get started. The time commitment for the training between both programs is vastly different as well. Anchored in Hope requires 2.5 hours. If you're going to do it in a group setting, probably another hour or two. Whereas the book-based program, you're looking at about a minimum of 60 hours across 3 different aspects of the training program, where Anchored in Hope is only 2.5 hours. The program can only be accessed in the app until you pass the training. Whereas with the book-based program, you can find it on Amazon, you can find it on Bibles.com. People who may not be trained can access our book-based program, which is not the same for Anchored in Hope. And the reason why this is gated is because we want to be certain that people who are trained and understand the content are the ones using the program. At Trauma Healing Institute, we have a do no harm model, and that really comes out in the trainings that we provide. This program only contains the core lessons as well. So when Maghan showed us the arc, everything from suffering to forgiveness is what is addressed in Anchored in Hope. Whereas book-based program, there are several supplemental lessons around domestic abuse, suicide, working with children. But Anchored in Hope only handles the core lessons. Reporting mechanism is built into the app, where the book-based program requires people to log into our website and to complete a report form online. The role of the group leader for Anchored in Hope is also significantly less than what you would experience with the book-based program. There's not as much facilitation that the group leader has to do, since all of the content is delivered via the audio files in the app. And there's only one certification for Anchored in Hope, and it's to become a healing group leader, whereas the book-based program has several certifications that someone can achieve. And these are the barriers that we sought to address when we built the program. This was taking into consideration the book-based program and the pre-existing audio program. The first one was the delivery method. As I just said, there was a lot of responsibility that was placed on the facilitator to be responsible for delivering the content. They're not teaching in the book-based program or in the Anchored in Hope program, but it sometimes felt like that with the amount of information that you had to relay to your group participants. That is not true for Anchored in Hope because, as I said, everything is delivered via the app. Also having and requiring manuals was a significant barrier for people to access the resources that they needed and take them into the places that they were going to lead this program. It also required some financial resources to be able to access these manuals for the facilitator as well as the participants, whereas the Anchored in Hope app is free. Scalability, since we're removing a lot of these barriers, it is easier for people to pick this up, to get trained, and to go and lead healing groups. We've heard from several people around the world, and including in the US, that have been using this program that it feels like they can take trauma healing in their back pocket. All they need to do is bring their phone with them. We removed barriers around the complex training model and the time commitment, and we eased the responsibility around reporting, since everything is needed in the app and it's the bare minimum information that we're looking for you to share with us about your group. The program model for Anchored in Hope, the first thing that we look for is experiencing a healing group. If you are brand new to trauma healing, you have never experienced any of our healing groups, we ask that you experience a healing group first. And it could be an Anchored in Hope group, it could be any of our adult healing group programs prior to taking the training. And there's two reasons why we ask this. The first is, it's important for you to understand as a potential group leader what you're asking a participant to experience in a group. And the only way that you can get that experience is by experiencing a healing group yourself. That's the first reason. The second reason is oftentimes in healing groups, even if you're not sure why you may be attending, there could be things that are brought up that help you address some heart wounds or traumas or pains that you have not had the chance to experience. So there's twofold as to why we would ask that you experience a healing group, especially if you're brand new. Second part is take the training, and you download the app. You either create an account or sign in if you already have an account with us, and you select the Anchored in Hope program. Like I said, it takes 2.5 hours for you to complete it on your own, and you have 3 days to complete it from the day that you start. If you go beyond 3 days, the training will reset and you will have to start all over again. So you've got three days to complete about 2.5 hours worth of training. But as soon as you pass the training, you immediately get access to the Anchored in Hope program, and you have what you need to begin leading healing groups. And that's the final phase of the program model, is to go and lead healing groups, to find your participants, to plan your group, select your location, and start implementing your trauma healing ministry. In terms of the training, this is what you can expect in the 2.5 hours. There are 6 modules that we've created. The first is a welcome and an overview that kind of sets up expectations as to what you'll be covering throughout the entire training. Second module is understanding the impact of trauma. How do people behave? What is trauma? Beginning to give you some language that you would find in the Anchored in Hope program. Third is creating a safe space. This helps you understand what is required for your healing group participants to feel safe as they begin sharing some deep pains that they have. Fourth is participatory learning. This is the learning method that you will find in every THI small group program. So we give you an overview of what it is, what are the characteristics of it, what do you have to do as the group leader to facilitate participatory learning, and then how that shows up in the program itself. The fifth is managing group dynamics. You should expect that there would be challenging behaviors that show up in a group. And this module helps identify some of the common behaviors that you could see and then how to address them in the group. And then finally, next steps. This is the beginning of action planning, helping you think more so as a facilitator now what you need to start considering to plan your first healing group. Here is a snapshot of some of what you can experience in the app. The first picture on the left-hand side is the program library. Currently, Anchored in Hope is available in 14 different languages, and over the next few months, we'll be adding 3 more. The second picture there shows you an overview of the type of information that we collect and that will eventually be stored in the database about the group that you ran. So we want to know what language did you run it in, when did you start, where did you host this, what organization are you associated to, and how many people started in your group. The third picture is where the group leaders spend their most time. This is essentially the playback screen. This is where you find the content for a specific lesson. And this screen actually has, you can see underneath where it says Tuesday morning group, there's 3 gray bars, and there's actually 3 screens that you can swipe through. The first has an image, the second has table of contents, and the third contains all of the discussion questions, the activities that appear in this program. And one thing about the content of this program, which is true for all of the Trauma Healing Institute programs, it combines both biblical principles and mental health best practices. There's a bit of a spectrum when you think about what can be applied to situations like this. On one side of the spectrum, highly spiritual content that people can apply to dealing with trauma or pain or suffering, but it doesn't necessarily address the emotional or psychological needs of an individual. Or you swing to the other side of the spectrum where it's highly psychological, highly clinical, highly mental health, but it doesn't address someone's spirituality. So we take both of those ends of the spectrum and we sit right in the middle where biblical principles are interwoven with mental health best practices. And then finally, on the fourth screen there, you'll see this is the final information that we ask from you after you complete your group. So how many people completed your group, and then when was the last day of your group? Very basic information that is reported to us. These are the core lessons for the Anchored in Hope program. They should look familiar to the ARC that Maghan shared earlier. One thing I want to note, you'll notice that suffering is about halfway through as one of the lesson options, whereas on the ARC, suffering was the first lesson that you would have experienced. We've learned over several years that sometimes starting with the suffering lesson, which really asks, who is God in the midst of my suffering? That can be a very hard conversation and a hard question for someone to kind of start with right off the bat. So we moved it towards the middle of the program after people have had an opportunity to understand what a heart wound is, understand the value of listening, which is what someone really needs in order to heal. What is the grieving process? What is the biblical response to grieving? Then we talk about suffering. Then we have a lesson about pain to the cross, where people are invited to examine their own hearts, write down any pains that they feel the Lord is bringing to mind, and then bring them to the cross and lay them at the foot of the cross. And then finally, we have a lesson in forgiveness. Every lesson in Anchored in Hope is structured the same. It starts with a welcome and an overview of what you'll experience in that lesson. There is a biblical story that helps bring out some of the core concepts of what will be discussed in that lesson. And it helps people begin to look at their own story through the lens of Scripture by identifying a biblical character. There's time for a live group discussion where the healing group itself is answering questions about the story. There's recorded content that sounds more of like a top-up where a facilitator through the app is giving some additional discussion questions, additional points to consider. And then there's an engaging activity exercise where the group together is engaging in some type of interactive activity. Each lesson ends with a memory verse exercise where the memory verse ties to the core components of that lesson, and people are encouraged to express that memory verse either through drawing a picture, writing a poem, creating a song, creating a dance, some way to use their body, the other portions of their brain to help memorize that verse. And then finally, we close the lesson recapping and then helping people understand what they can expect in the next lesson. So with all that being said, that is the Anchored in Hope program. We do have a few resources available to you to help you learn more about Anchored in Hope. And the first is our public webpage. You can navigate to traumahealinginstitute.org, and under the small group navigation tab, Anchored in Hope has its own dedicated webpage where you can learn a little bit about what the program is, very similar content to what I'm sharing with you right now, and what the next steps are if you're interested in getting involved. We also have a facilitator page after you log into the website. Now, you'll only get access to the Anchored in Hope materials library after you've taken the training, because this Anchored in Hope materials library has additional resources that you would need to help lead your group. For example, a leader's guide or access to the training videos. There's also promotional materials that you can use if you're considering implementing this in your own church. There are flyers, a couple different videos that you can use, social media tiles. So all of that can be found in the Anchored in Hope library. And then finally, in the app itself, after you complete the training, at the bottom of the screen, there is a materials tab. And when you click on that, that tab takes you directly to the materials library that I just showed you on the facilitator website. So you have literally everything you need in the palm of your hand. So that's an overview of what the program is, what additional resources we have. Now with you, I would like to share the testimony of a woman who first participated in Anchored in Hope as a participant and then ended up implementing this program into her church. Her name is Amy Velasquez, and she is a leader within her church. And I would like to share with you her testimony.
Hello, my name is Amy Velasquez. I'm currently a Trauma Healing Institute facilitator at my local church, Transformation Church Lehigh Valley, located in Pennsylvania. What can I say about this program? Initially, I will be very honest, I was a bit hesitant. I am a visual learner, so I wasn't sure how the whole audio-based component would work, especially in a group for trauma healing. You know, that's something very intimate, something very personal. I just wasn't sure how that would pan out, but I had absolutely nothing to worry about. The program, the way they designed this program, the individuals were immersed immediately in it when they would hear the dramatized portions, the questions that had them reflect on their lives. Everything just pulled them into the program in such a beautiful way that allowed for the healing journey to take forward steps. I was able to see individuals completely impacted by this program. There were individuals who they chose forgiveness. They had not chosen forgiveness and they chose to move forward. There were individuals who were able to reclaim their voices. They had been suffering in silence by themselves for so long that they did not know they could speak. They could share their story. They had a story to share and it was theirs to tell, and they had the space, the safe space to do so. There were individuals who were able to grieve. They hadn't grieved over what they had gone through, and they were able to do so as well. Some of my favorite stories involve individuals who realized, oh wow, my heart wounds are part of a generational pattern, and they chose to say enough is enough. They broke the patterns for the sake of their children. And I will always be impacted by that, because this program not only is touching the lives of individuals, but it's going beyond the four walls of these group settings, and it's touching and impacting and even healing the families, the next generation, those individuals, their communities, their workplaces, their churches are being impacted in a positive light as well. And as a facilitator, I've been impacted. I've been able to see the hand of God over their lives and how He's healed and how He's been gentle in their lives, healing them, whispering to them the way Elijah was whispered to in his moments of hardship and lowest points in life, and how God still does it. So I absolutely recommend this program for the churches. It's so simplistic in the way that it is an audio-based program. You follow it to a T. You follow what the questions ask, what the activities offer for the individuals, and you see God's healing take place. And to be His hands and feet, and to be the church, and to see healing and connect with these individuals, it's a privilege and it's an honor. And I believe that this program, what Trauma Healing Institute has done, it's far-reaching, the effects and the impact, and I am truly privileged to be part of it.
I so appreciate Amy's testimony with this program, how she starts out with being somewhat skeptical. She's not sure, is this going to work for her? Is this going to work for her church? And then as she experienced it, she not only found her own personal healing, she began to recognize this can work for my church, and not just for the people that are going into the groups, but this could have generational impact as well. So with all this being said, there are a couple things that we want to make you aware of. The first is, if you are looking to get started, you can download the app right now. We have 2 QR codes available on the screen for you, those of you that are iPhone users and those of you that are Android users. The app is completely free. You need to select a primary email address in order to create your account on the THI app. And just know that this is the same email address that you would use to log into our website. I know many of us have multiple email addresses these days, but the one that you use for the app is the same one that you would use for our website. But you can download the app now, take the training, get started, listen to some of the lessons if you're curious as to what this program is really like. And then second, we want to invite you to join us again. As Megan said earlier, today was only part 1 of a 2-part series. What's happening November 5th is a lesson experience. It's 2 hours where we'll talk a little bit more about the program, but then really spend time beginning to experience one of these lessons. And it would be best if you've already downloaded the app, taken the training, and you're coming just to receive and to experience on November 5th. At this time, I would love to invite Megan to come back, and she is going to help us facilitate any of the questions that you may have been considering throughout the course of this presentation.
Thanks, Bree, for that wonderful kind of overview of this program, of the training model, the new training model, as well as the structure, the lessons. That was really helpful in understanding this program. Now, I know that's just an overview, and there have been a number of questions that have come in. So I'll just start off with some of the questions that people are asking. And then audience, feel free, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. So one of the first questions I have is, so Bree, you explained the training model. You can download the app and take the training as an individual on your phone. So churches are asking, well, what if I have a bunch of small group leaders that I want to get trained all at once? How would we do this?
That's an excellent question, and it's a very common approach to implementing trainings in a church or an organization. And what you can do is at least one person in the church should already be trained and anchored in hope because someone needs to be able to access the training videos. So select at least one person, have them go through the training by themselves. But what you can do from there is that trained individual gets access to the training videos on the Anchored in Hope Materials Library. So what you would do is you would gather the small group leaders that are interested in getting trained. Everyone should download the app, create the account, because the quiz for the training is in the app. So everyone needs to be able to access their phone. You would project the videos up on a screen, and then after each module, each person opens up their phone, goes into the app, and takes the quiz associated with that module. And that can be done over the course of a few hours. We're not looking at a full day training experience. It only takes a few hours to do this in a group setting.
Wonderful. Now, another question is, so we know that the training takes 2.5 hours if you're by yourself, a little bit longer if you do this in a group. How long would the whole lesson, if you're facilitating the whole Anchored in Hope program with, 12 people in my small group, how long would that take? How long does each lesson take? How long would the whole program take?
Yes, so the welcome lesson is 20 minutes, and it's very common that people pair the welcome lesson with the heart wounds lesson. But all of the core lessons, heart wounds, grieving, listening, suffering, pain to the cross, forgiveness, those can vary between an hour and a half, 2 hours. And that includes the audio time, discussion time, activity time, memory verse time. You're looking at about an hour and a half to 2 hours per lesson.
Okay, wonderful. And the app, does it cost money? Does Anchored in Hope, does it cost a lot of money for churches?
The app itself is completely free. Accessing the Anchored in Hope program is completely free. If there is a cost to implementing the program, that would be your decision within your church. Some people charge a registration fee. Some people offer this for free. We don't, Trauma Healing Institute doesn't direct people one way or another on how to charge people to lead a healing group.
Okay. And you had mentioned that, we want people to encounter a healing group first, before they start leading trauma healing groups or the Anchor and Hope program. Where can people find that information? Like, how can they join a healing group if they're the first ones at their church that, are like being introduced to this program? How do they find a healing group?
Great question. I would visit the Trauma Healing Institute events page on our website. We have facilitators from across the United States, East Coast to West Coast, that are offering healing groups. Healing groups can be led in person or online. And honestly, since the pandemic, there's a lot of online activity that is happening these days. So it is very possible that you could go to the events page and find an online healing group for you to attend.
Yeah, that's true. So much of churches have kind of adapted to the online presence, and the ease of creating something that is more accessible to people online. And so it makes sense that, and it's really exciting that there's healing groups that are offered online. So, Brianna, one person was asking, can I download this app on my computer?
No, it does not work on your computer. The app is intended for phones or tablet devices. So whether it's an iPad, another type of tablet, you cannot find it on your computer's app store, and it will not download onto your computer. It's only on phones and tablets.
Okay. Now it looks like Nicole in the chat is trying to think about like the how to train her small group leaders. She was asking about, can we share the training videos with our small group leaders, or should they go through the training themselves?
So I'll answer it this way. Anyone that is interested, especially if they're brand new, Nicole, encourage them to experience a healing group first, online, in person, any adult program, doesn't matter. The training videos for those that are looking to be trained, they're either accessing it on their phone individually, or you're in a group setting where you're taking the training videos from the materials library and projecting them. You cannot send people the training videos in the library because they don't have access to them yet because they're not trained. So they're either experiencing it in a group setting with you, projected on a screen, or they're watching it on their phone by themselves.
And each of those little, like if you're training in a group, let's say all of your small group leaders, they each have to download the app and take the quizzes themselves.
Correct.
So as a group, you can be watching the videos together, discussing the discussion questions together, which is a really like robust way to do this within your church. But each individual person has to download the app and actually take the quizzes on their individual phone. So they each individually have the certification and access to the program after the training is done.
Yep, that's correct.
Yep. So another question that came up is, how would I introduce this to my church? Let's say I'm a small group leader and I really love this idea of Anchored in Hope program. And I want to introduce this, let's say, to the senior pastor or associate pastor, the leadership team of my church. What are some like how would I introduce this to my church?
Yeah, that's a very common question. And specifically for this group, the first thing I would say is come back November 5th. What we're offering on November 5th is something you can model and demonstrate within your own church organization setting. A little bit of overview of what the program is, but then people really learn what we offer at Trauma Healing Institute by experiencing it. So a large part of November 5th will be an experience. So my first response to that would be come back November 5th, experience it with us, and then you'll learn how to introduce it to your church.
Yep. And November 5th, we'll be offering additional resources. If you're a church leader and you want to introduce this to your church, we're going to be offering you a really good outline to use, PowerPoint slides to use, and a whole website that will be really helpful to utilize. So we really want to encourage you, if this is the first time that you're encountering the Trauma Healing Institute or these programs, come back. We'll walk you through a lesson. We'll walk you through the steps of how to get started in your church because we want your churches, we want your communities to experience healing, and we want to empower churches. We want to empower leaders for you guys to be the ones inviting your communities to heal. And so this is the best way possible that we can offer kind of guidance in this process. So we're excited. We are so thrilled to invite you into the process. So when you have a chance, download the app, take the training, get familiar with the program, and then come back on November 5th and we'll walk you through how a lesson experience. We'll walk you through how to bring these resources to your church, and we'll engage all of your questions after this. And one more question, is this available in Spanish? What languages is this available in, Bree?
Okay, this will be a test of my memory. There are 14 current languages that are available: English, Spanish, French, Twi, Cebuano, Swahili, More, Hausa, Zarma, Colloqua English, Pidgin English, Bengali, Hindi, Russian, and soon we will be adding Classic Arabic, Sudanese Arabic, and Acholi. So to answer your question, yes, it is available in Spanish and quite a few others.
Wow, that is amazing. And I think what's so incredible is that this program is really adaptable to many different audiences. And as you can see, we're developing this in multiple languages so that we can empower the church to be agents of healing in their communities. So thank you all. This is our time for today. Again, thank you, Bree, for just walking us through this program. Thank you all for joining. And feel free, if you have not downloaded the app yet, download it on your app store. Type in THI mobile app. search for it, download it, take the training, work through the program, kind of look through the program yourself, and then come back November 5th. And we'll walk you through a full lesson experience. And amen. This is an answer to my prayer. I see that, Darnell, in the chat. Yes. Like we have heard so many churches ask, like, we need a program like this. We need it simpler. We need it to be accessible. And we are happy and excited to share with you our newest program. And we want to walk with you every step of the way. So download it, take the training, come back, join us for November 5th. And then to help us help you better, when you get off of this program or when you get off this webinar, take the survey. It's 5 questions. Tell us like what you're excited about, what more information you need. All right. We're happy to walk with you in this journey. So thank you all and have a wonderful rest of Wednesday. The rest of the Wednesday. Thank you all. See you later. Bye.